I was standing in the middle of our kitchen, staring at 4 hours of my 17-year-old daughter's hard work, when my mother picked up her purse, dusted off her coat, and said the 6 words that shattered my child's heart. "We'll eat at a restaurant instead." Maya's hands were trembling as she lowered the serving spoon. She had spent all day slave over a hot stove, balancing 3 different recipes, just to prove to her grandmother that she was worthy of a compliment. But my mother didn't even pull out a chair. She just sniffed the air, made a disgusted face at the menu, and decided that hurting a teenager was better than swallowing her pride. That was the exact moment something inside me snapped. I had spent my entire life letting my mother run over me, but the second she came for my daughter, the gloves were off. "My name is Sarah, I'm 38 years old, and for as long as I can remember, I've been invisible in my own family. My mother, Evelyn, had a hierarchy, and I was always sitting at the bottom of it. At the absolute top was my younger sister, Rachel, the golden child who could do no wrong, despite living off handouts well into her 30s. I was just the practical, quiet daughter who worked a steady job, raised her child alone, and kept her head down. I swallowed her constant jabs for decades because I thought keeping the peace was what a good daughter was supposed to do. But then my daughter, Maya, turned 17. Maya is bright, resilient, and deeply passionate about cooking. She dreams of going to culinary school next year, and for months, she had been saving up her own money from a part-time job to host a formal family Sunday dinner. She didn't just want to cook, she wanted to earn her grandmother's approval. You see, Evelyn was notorious for giving backhanded compliments, but Maya naively believed that if she presented a perfect, gourmet meal, Evelyn would finally look at her with pride. I tried to gently warn her. "Sweetheart, your grandmother can be set in her ways," I'd said, trying to cushion the eventual blow. But Maya just smiled, her eyes lighting up as she showed me her handwritten 3-course menu. "It's going to be perfect, Mom. She won't have anything bad to say." I watched her excitement and felt a pit form in my stomach. I knew my mother, and I knew that her cruelty wasn't about the food, it was about control. Still, I helped Maya set the dining table, praying that just this once, Evelyn would choose kindness over her petty ego. By the time Sunday morning arrived, our house was filled with the rich, comforting aromas of slow-roasted garlic, simmered herbs, and fresh pastry dough. Maya had been awake since 7 in the morning, transformed into a whirlwind of quiet focus. She'd spent her own hard-earned savings on fresh produce, high-grade meats, and artisanal cheeses. Watching her lay out the linen table runner, polish every piece of silverware, and carefully arrange fresh, white roses in the center of the table broke my heart just a little bit. She was pouring her entire soul into this night. "Does it smell right, Mom? Is the table too crowded?" she asked for what felt like the 100th time, nervously tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. Her apron was dusted with flour, but her eyes held a desperate hope that made my throat tighten. "It looks like a Michelin star restaurant, sweetie," I reassured her, giving her shoulders a gentle squeeze. "She's going to love it." By 4:30 p.m., the roasted lamb was resting under foil, the homemade gnocchi was prepped, and the chocolate tarts were cooling on the counter. Dinner was set for 5 sharp. But 5 o'clock came and went. The food began to cool, and Maya's anxious pacing grew faster. It was nearly 10 to 6 when my mother's car finally pulled into the driveway. She didn't come alone. My sister Rachel sauntered up the walkway behind her, both of them glued to their phones. When I opened the door, Evelyn didn't smile or apologize for being nearly an hour late. She simply stepped inside, sniffed the air with a wrinkled nose, and wiped her shoes on my rug as if she was entering a dirty bus station. The storm had arrived. "Grandma, Aunt Rachel, you made it," Maya said, her face lighting up as she wiped her hands on her apron. "Everything is hot and ready. Take a seat anywhere you like." Evelyn didn't step toward the table. Instead, she stood frozen in the foyer, adjusting her pearl necklace with a look of intense distaste. She took a theatrical breath and winced. "Good Lord, Sarah, what is that overpowering odor? It smells like a stale diner in here. My head is already spinning." I felt my blood instantly run cold. Maya's smile flickered, but she pressed on, taking a deep breath to steady her voice. It's herb-crusted lamb and fresh garlic gnocchi, Grandma. I spent all day making it from scratch. Evelyn scoffed, glancing at Rachel, who hid a smirk behind her manicured hand. Gnocchi? Heavy carbs and greasy meat? At my age? You know my stomach is far too delicate for heavy, amateur cooking, Maya. Who knows if the meat is even cooked properly? It looks completely unappetizing. I used a meat thermometer, Grandma. It's a perfect medium rare, Maya started, her voice cracking. I'm not risking food poisoning tonight, child, Evelyn interrupted flatly, pulling her designer coat back tightly around her shoulders. She turned to Rachel with a theatrical sigh. We'll eat at a restaurant instead. Come along, Rachel. I'm taking us to the steakhouse downtown where they actually know how to prepare a proper meal. Maya stood frozen, holding a warm basket of fresh bread she had baked from scratch. Tears welled in her eyes before spilling down her flushed cheeks. Without another word, she set the basket down, turned, and ran upstairs, the heavy slam of her bedroom door echoing through the silent house. Evelyn just rolled her eyes and sniffed. Honestly, Sarah, you're raising such a dramatic child. I rushed upstairs and found Maya curled up on her bed, sobbing uncontrollably into her pillow. I just wanted her to be proud of me, Mom. She wept, her small shoulders shaking. I worked so hard. I pulled her into a tight hug, my heart tearing in two, and kissed the top of her head. You did amazing, sweetie, I whispered, my voice dripping with a newfound, sharp anger. She doesn't deserve you. And I promise you on my life, this is the last time she ever hurts you. Leaving Maya to rest, I marched back downstairs, every step fueled by 38 years of buried resentment. Evelyn and Rachel were standing near the front door, whispering and checking their reflections in the hallway mirror, completely unbothered. You need to leave, I said, my voice dangerously low. Evelyn turned, raising an eyebrow. Don't take that tone with me, Sarah. I'm doing us all a favor. The food smelled terrible, and Shut up, Mom, I snapped, cutting her off cold. Both of their jaws dropped. You humiliated a teenager who spent her own money and 4 hours cooking for you. You're cruel, selfish, and bitter. Rachel stepped forward, rolling her eyes. Oh, calm down, Sarah. It's not that big of a deal. Mom already made reservations at Prime 112 3 days ago, anyway. We were always going to the steakhouse. The foyer fell dead silent. Evelyn's face went completely pale as she shot Rachel a lethal glare. I stared at them, the piece of the puzzle finally clicking into place. It wasn't about the garlic. It wasn't about her delicate stomach. She had planned this humiliation days in advance, treating my daughter's heartfelt gesture as nothing more than a joke. A strange, freezing calm washed over me. For almost 4 decades, I had played the quiet, submissive daughter, swallowing every insult just to keep our family together. But sitting there, looking at my mother's pale face and my sister's panicked eyes, I realized my silence had only fed their cruelty. The gloves were officially off. 3 days ago, I repeated, my voice dropping to an icy, steady whisper. You knew she was cooking all week, and you sat back and let her waste her time and her heart, just so you could pull off a cheap power move. Sarah, don't be ridiculous, Evelyn stammered, trying to reclaim her usual commanding authority, though her voice wobbled. It was just a backup plan in case. I don't care about your excuses, I interrupted, taking a step toward her. You are finished here. Get out of my house. You can't talk to our mother like that, Rachel squawked, stepping in front of Evelyn. She's the matriarch of this family. I looked at Rachel and chuckled dryly. A matriarch? No, she's a bully. And you're just her lapdog. But since you both love high-end steakhouses so much, I hope you enjoy this meal. Because it's the very last thing you'll ever charge to Dad's estate. Evelyn froze, her hand flying to her throat. What are you talking about? When Dad passed away 6 years ago, he left me as the sole trustee of his family trust, I said, leaning in. I've stayed quiet while you spent your discretionary allowance on designer bags, luxury dinners, and Rachel's credit card bills. I let it slide out of respect for Dad. But as of right now, I'm freezing both of your cards pending a full financial audit. The color completely drained from Evelyn's face. The arrogant composure she had maintained for years crumbled instantly, replaced by sheer, unadulterated panic. Rachel gasped, her eyes wide with terror as she looked back and forth between us. Without that trust fund, neither of them had a safety net. "You can't do that," Evelyn shrieked, her voice cracking as she took an unsteady step toward me. "That money is mine. Your father meant for me to live comfortably. Dad meant for you to take care of this family, not use his hard-earned legacy to terrorize my daughter," I replied coldly, stepping back to open the front door wide. "As the sole executor, I have full authority to freeze accounts under suspicion of reckless spending. And considering you just admitted to booking a $500 dinner while receiving a home-cooked meal, I'd say that's reckless." "Sarah, please, think about what you're doing," Rachel cried, her smug attitude instantly vanishing into pathetic, desperate bargaining. "Mom's blood pressure. You're going to give her a stroke." "We were just joking. Get out," I said, pointing toward the driveway. Evelyn tried every trick in her emotional abuse playbook right there on my porch. First came the tears, then the accusations that I was an ungrateful daughter, and finally threats of legal action. But I stood there like an iron wall, watching her desperate antics with complete indifference. Realizing she had lost all power over me, she finally turned and stumbled down the walkway, Rachel scrambling behind her. As they got into the car, I heard Rachel angrily shouting at my mother for ruining their free ride. The golden child and her creator had turned on each other before they even left my driveway. I closed the door, locked it, and took a deep, clear breath. For the first time in 38 years, the heavy, suffocating weight on my chest was completely gone. I walked back upstairs and knocked gently on Maya's door. She was sitting up, wiping her red eyes with her sleeve. "Are they gone?" she asked quietly. "They're gone, sweetie," I said, pulling up a chair next to her. "And they're never coming back to hurt you again." I took her hands in mine and told her everything about the trust fund, the frozen accounts, and how I had finally stood up to my mother. Maya's eyes widened, and for the first time all evening, a soft, genuine smile broke through her tears. Together, we went downstairs. We didn't let that beautiful food go to waste. We plated up the lamb, the fresh gnocchi, and the chocolate tarts, sat down at the candlelit table, and ate like royalty. Maya took her first bite, closed her eyes, and smiled. It was, without a doubt, the best meal I had ever tasted, not just because she was a brilliant cook, but because it tasted like absolute freedom. Over the next few weeks, my phone blew up with angry calls from family members, but I blocked every single one of them without hesitation. My peace was non-negotiable. Today, Maya is thriving in culinary school, earning top marks from chefs who actually appreciate her talent. Looking back, I realized that cutting off my toxic mother wasn't just about protecting my daughter, it was about protecting myself. We don't owe our happiness to people who only want to see us suffer, even if they're family. Sometimes, walking away from the table is the only way to finally nourish your soul.